So tonight, we have a very, very special guest. It is Terri Loftus. She has even more experience than Tim Powell. No kidding, but she has tons and tons of experience. You guys know her. You guys love her. She's amazing. She's been on stage at Power World, been on stage down in San Diego, absolutely crushing the game right now. And yeah, we reached out to her to see if she can share some knowledge and some wisdom with the team, and she happily accepted. So Terri Loftus, please go ahead and take it away.
You're super kind. Thank you. I see you as the main picture. Do you need to do anything on your end for me to? Okay, awesome. All righty. See if I can share it this way. Okay, can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, good. Anthony, thank you. And Bo, thank you so much for inviting me to do this class. Super excited to be here. And I asked Anthony and Bo what I should teach on, and Anthony sent me an email with some topics. So I'm going to go through this. It may be basic for some of you, but for people that are new into solar, I think this might be helpful. So let me go ahead and minimize that. Okay, perfect. All right. So how solar works. If you're new, you probably want to take some notes. I'm going to go over a couple things that you might not be familiar with, but I like to explain it in the very easy way that a customer would understand without getting too complicated. Basically, the sun is going to have the rays hitting the solar panels, and it's going to create DC power. That DC power goes into an inverter and it'll convert that power into AC electricity, which is what will power the home. And there's a couple different inverter types, so there's all sorts of different brands, but the main types of inverters are what's called a boxed inverter or a string inverter. And this is where each solar panel on the roof will go into the boxed inverter. So like our solar edge, and that'll convert that electricity. There's also something called a microinverter, and the microinverter goes on the back of each solar panel. And so if there's 30 panels, there would be 30 microinverters. If you're using a boxed inverter, it will be configured for the system size. What I like to do is see which one's going to have better production. Now, there's times where you might be in a competitive bidding situation and everybody is bidding microinverters and they've said some things about boxed inverters that may or may not be true. And if you go in trying to pitch a boxed inverter, they may think you don't have microinverters and the other way around. And so I do what looks like it's best for the customer. So if they are sold that they need microinverters, we have microinverters. If they are sold that they need a solar edge, we have the solar edge inverter. So which is my favorite? My favorite is whichever the customer wants. That's my favorite. No, in all seriousness, my favorite is if they need a microinverter or they need a boxed inverter. Okay, Bo is saying, would you use a microinverter if there looks to be a little shade in some places on the roof? You know what I do, Bo? I cheat. I go and I look at what is the production if I use a microinverter and what is the production if I use the normal inverter that they configured. My biggest cheat on that, which is super important, is when let's say that they create your proposal and it's using a Solar Edge 10,000 and you is that go, hey, I wonder what would happen if I switched it to microinverters. When you switch away from the inverter that they configured, when you go back, it may be a different inverter that pops up. It may not be the correct inverter. And so I always take a screenshot or like grab my camera and just take a picture real quick. So that way I see what they've said is the best configuration and then I can switch it and then I can put it back. So that's a little hack right there. That's super important. The other little hack I've learned is exactly what Anthony was talking about earlier. You're talking to a customer, they think they need a huge system because of they're going to get an electric car, whatever it is. And maybe you've designed the solar before you had found out that they just bought the house and you have to do it on the square footage. when they've designed the solar for you, they've optimized the panels and the inverters based on the kilowatt hour usage you put in there. If you put in extra kilowatt hour usage, then it's going to turn out that maybe you've got to take panels off the roof and you might have the solar edge inverter that's too powerful for that configuration. So sometimes if that happens to me, because I'm not perfect, right? So if I find out after the fact that the person, just moved in and we've got to change the system size, maybe they were getting bids and they said, Terry, I need a 10 kilowatt or whatever, then I'll go through and I'll see which inverters will have the best optimization, like what's going to produce the most power for the customer. There's really important things about the inverter that I'll just cover in a couple minutes, but just remember there's the micro inverters that go on the back of each panel, and then there's the boxed one that just goes on the side of the house. When I first got into solar, the boxed inverters had a lot more problems with shading. So as Bo was asking about, when I first got into solar and there were no micro inverters, if there was serious shading on a roof, a stringer inverter or the boxed inverter, if there was shading on a portion of the string, then that would cause the whole string to cut down on the efficiency. So what do I mean by a string? So let's say there was 20 panels on the roof. They may have 4 strings of 5, right? And so in that string of 5, if one of the panels got shaded, it would cut the production down on the whole string. Now there's the what are they called? Anthony, help me out. On the back of the
Optimizers.
panel, optimizers. Yes, thank you. So now we have some optimizers that can go on the back of the panels that'll help out with that. So in my personal experience, when I'm looking at solar edge and micro inverters, each one has their own application. I go for which one's going to have the best production for the customer. So when the solar's producing that power and the power is being converted to AC electricity to power the house, um, any extra power that it's producing will go back to the grid, right? So the customer will get a credit for that. Now, it's super important that you learn what your utility does for net metering. So when Anthony's talking about net metering and they're going to credit the account, it's different with every utility. So in PG&E, yeah, they're going to give a credit, and that credit is going to be different than what they give out here in Modesto. In Modesto, with MID, it could be 2 cents to 7 cents. It changes daily. And so that is different than Merced or Turlock or Southern California. So there's utilities out there that will do, like for example, PG&E, which will do a 1-year billing cycle based on when the solar was installed. So the happy birthday date or anniversary date for the solar, the time it's turned on, that's when the 1 year starts. That's when their 1-year anniversary starts. If you are with a different utility, it may be trued up every single month. Some of them base it on a calendar year. So the net metering is really important that you study it a little bit. Some of them will give a nice credit that's called one-on-one. So dollar for dollar, they would have charged 19 cents to the customer. They give back 19 cents. Some of them say, I charge you 19 cents and I'm going to give you 2. So you want to know, why is that really important? Is because, for an example, when somebody's getting the one-on-one dollar for dollar, it could be that they sell it for that and then they're buying it for that. So when they're producing that power, it's wiping out that bill. Something like an irrigation district that will charge 18 cents and give you 2 cents, that means you have to send them 9 kilowatt hours to get 1 kilowatt hour of value back. So that net metering is important to know for your particular utility. So that's called net energy metering. It's really important that when you're getting the utility bill, that you look at who's on that utility bill, because the interconnection documents that your customer will get for that net metering need to match the utility bill. So just like a heads up there. I'm mentioning that because I've helped people go solar and the electric bill was in grandma's name, and grandma's not there anymore, but the utility bill is still in grandma's name. So the value, as I mentioned, varies by utility. So you need to find out what that value is for that utility, and also what happens at the end of the year. So there's some utilities that will cut the customer a check, but it has to be at least $25. There's utilities that will roll that amount over to the next year. So each utility is different. You'll want to find out whether or not they're going to get a check or whether they'll roll that over. Some utilities do both. What happens if there's a power outage or the grid goes down? So Anthony mentioned earlier, here in California, we're all getting emergency things on our phone right now. The one that I got earlier said, I'm just going to read it to you. Conserve energy now to protect public health and safety. Extreme heat is straining the state energy grid. Power interruptions may occur unless you take action. Turn off or reduce your non-essential power as health allows, now until 9 o'clock. Well, what's going to happen if all of a sudden the grid goes down? Well, one, our Zoom meeting will be over. Thank you for joining us, just in case. But if the grid went down, then what will happen with everybody that has solar? Will they continue to be able to operate their house while everybody else sits in the dark? Are they in the dark just like their neighbors? The answer is yes, if they don't have any type of backup system or something to uh, divert that energy over. So why is a solar customer out of power also? Well, when a customer goes solar and they're producing that power that's powering the house, and then the extra power goes to the grid, if something happened, like the electrical line went down, maybe a tree fell on the power line, there's going to be a worker that is connecting that utility line back to the grid. And so they don't want them to get electrocuted. So when they're making the inverters, it used to be that the inverter, to get the UL listing, would actually shut down if there was some type of outage. Now, if we have a battery backup system or a way to divert that away from the utility, then that works. But most of solar customers, we will be out of electricity. Theirs will go down too, unless they have a battery backup. So a battery backup system, there's a bunch of different battery backup systems that are out there. The main thing to know when you're doing a battery, and this is talking about the inverter, I mentioned earlier there was something really important about the inverter that I have to cover later, and this is it. So when you're looking at helping a customer go solar, if they tell you that they want a battery, you need to make sure that that inverter matches the battery. So for example, if you're using in-phase inverters, right? That in-phase inverter goes with that in-phase battery. So you would want to use the in-phase inverters with that in-phase battery. If you were using, the SolarEdge inverter, you wouldn't want to use the in-phase battery. It'd be better if you use the in-phase inverters with the in-phase battery. So you just want to find out up front if your customer wants a battery backup, because if they do, and you know which battery you're going to be using, then you can connect that inverter with the correct battery. So just make sure when you're doing the battery selection, I think Bo and Anthony are going to have somebody that comes and talks to us about that battery and which way they work and which one would be best with the customer. So make sure that that inverter works with the battery. And that's everything. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And back to you, Anthony.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, that was may have been review for some of us more experienced reps, but a lot of people do ask these questions for hey, how does net meter work, and how does this work, and how do these different things work when dealing with solar. So I'm glad that Terri went over all that. And so this was recorded, and we are going to have copies on Bo's YouTube, and then also on our team website that everyone should have access to now as well. On top of that, if you guys missed the last couple of weeks of training, it was awesome. Bo and Daniel and a few other, Jim, they all did an excellent job going over the CRM. Shout out to Jim as well today. So I was actually working on my CRM today that I got from Bo, and I heard Bo was a little under the weather, so I was bugging Jim, and Jim actually walked me through a bunch of stuff and helped me make a bunch of templates and stuff and email templates. And for some reason, Dana's video and his face was attached to a bunch of introduction emails and texts on my profile, so got rid of that mug everywhere. So got that all ironed out. So definitely want to check out those previous trainings as well and access the site that Daniel and Bo have been working on. And then also, if you need a CRM for your leads, then reach out to Bo for that as well. Yeah, my video was all weird. For some reason, it showed Doug. So Doug was like the main thing on my camera or on my screen right now. Beautiful face, Doug. I love it.